Hello and welcome to another episode of Startup to Scaleup. I'm Avni Raja. On today's show, we're putting the spotlight on Biofuels Junction. First, take a look. Biofuels Junction is a leading player in India's solid biofuels market. It was founded in 2018 by finance professionals Ashwin and Chaitanya. The startup's primary activities include producing, aggregating, and promoting the sale of biomass, which industries use to generate energy. Over the past 5 years, this startup has made a significant contribution to India's rural economy, supporting over 30,000 farmers. It has also emerged as a key contributor to environmental conservation, saving over 3 lakh metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions. And to talk more about this startup, joining me is Ashwin Patil, the founder and MD. Ashwin, thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us. Let me start at the beginning. If you can tell us about your own journey and how did this idea of Biofuels Junction actually come about?
Thanks, Avni. Thank you very much for getting me on this platform. I'm really excited to be here. Uh, as you asked, this is really the most exciting part of our journey, how we started. Uh, Basically, me and my co-founder Chaitanya, we have known each other for last 20 years. And after having worked for almost like 15, 18 years in the corporate world, we always wanted to do something on our own. And in that quest, we had been scouting for ideas. This is like way back in 2016, 17, I'm talking about. So we did a lot of ground research in terms of exploring different ideas. Within that gamut, we were very clear that we wanted to do something which is close to agriculture. The reason being, I come from an agriculture background. My family is into agriculture for generations. And I have seen that there's so much about the post produce, which is the main product in agriculture, various ideas from cold storage to, supply chain. But one thing I realized that there was hardly anything about the, the post harvest waste residue, which is recurring. So that time we came across this particular product of biofuel, which is made from agriculture residue. And we were excited, but at the same time skeptical that, yeah, how can something like this work, which is so obvious and, so novel. So what we did, we basically tested this with couple of clients, the extreme ends of one, a traditional family business and an MNC. And to our surprise, we realized that they were already using it for 5 years before then. And we were like taken aback that something so obvious and so useful, because when we went through the entire supply chain, we realized this is a win-win-win for everyone in the system, including the country, including the environment. And that's how we came across this idea. This is, I'm talking about circa 2017.
Okay, right. So take us through the process then from actually obtaining the agricultural residue that you spoke about to the final products. What is that like?
Right. This will be helpful to explain the entire, how it shapes up. Typically, post harvest, farmer is exhausted with the, all the hard work which is put in. Post harvest, all types of agri residues are lying in the field in the form of waste or residue and various shapes. Sometimes it is in fine powder, sometimes it is in coarse powder. It's lying in the field. That agriculture residue before the next crop has to be lifted from the farm or spread out or burned. So farmer has the easier option of burning it basically, and that adds CO2 in the environment. So typically what happens that the rural level aggregators, who are the helpers and workers, farm laborers, who do not have additional work post harvest, they typically come together. They act as aggregators. They collect that residue from farmers, from farm to farm, because agriculture residue comes in the proportion of say around 600 kg to 1000 kg per acre. That is the residue I'm talking about. That's the general rule. So that residue is collected by these aggregators. Uh, they typically work in a group of 6 to 7 family members or close ones. They fill that residue in the tempo, and that raw material or the feedstock is brought to a manufacturing facility which is close by. This typically happens in a radius of 30-40 kilometers, beyond which it becomes unviable to transport. There at the facility, the residue which is available for a short period of 2 months to 3 months, it's stored for the entire year. There, that residue is first dried. If it is wet, if it has moisture, it is dried, and then it is densified using a locally made machine. And it is densified to make either briquettes or pellets. These are cylindrical shape objects. These are made specifically to be efficient to use as a fuel in the industrial boiler. From that manufacturing plant, these fuels are shipped to the industrial location where there are boilers, where it is used as a fuel in place of coal or furnace oil or any other fossil fuel, and it generates heat. That's the journey of biofuel, how it happens.
Right. So explain to us the extent of impact that this has in terms of reduction of carbon emissions as compared to the traditional fossil fuels.
Oh, that's huge. That's huge. I mean, there are various levels of impact. What you're asking me is about the environmental impact. So,
Yes.
typically, what happens that agriculture is a recurring thing. So, during the year, the crop absorbs carbon dioxide. Then, the same residue, when it is burnt in the field, it generates some carbon dioxide in the environment. Now, that same residue, which was otherwise getting burnt in the field, is now getting shaped up in the form of briquettes and pellet, and that gets burned into the boiler. When it gets burned into the industrial boiler or industrial premises, yes, it does generate carbon dioxide, but that is way lesser than what coal does. So 1 ton of coal typically generates 2.4 to 2.5 tons of carbon dioxide, because there are additional oxygen atoms getting added to it. In comparison to that, in absolute term, biofuels, which are made from our agriculture residue, generate close to 1.4 to 1.5 tons of carbon dioxide. So it's way lower than what CO2 generated by the coal. Uh, in other words, you're not generating additional carbon, because this is the carbon dioxide which is absorbed by the plant during the farming period, and now it was getting burnt into the field. Now you're burning it in the boiler. So there is no incremental. That's why it's called the carbon neutral fuel. Second thing
Right.
is, in terms of the greenhouse gases, SOx and NOx, which are sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, their emission in case of biofuel is minimal. So biggest boon by using biofuel is that you are reducing the emission of SOx and NOx, which are very, very harmful from environment point of view. Third point is your particulate matter. So the soot which you see coming out from the chimneys in an industrial area is higher in case of coal, but that is much lower than the permissible limit in case of biofuel. So when you talk about environment, it's a significant reduction when you are shifting to biofuels.
Right. So, Ashwin, from the environmental side, you've explained a lot of positive benefits that this has. But from a user perspective, the companies that you partner with, what are the kind of advantages that they get?
Right. From a user point of view, there are two distinct advantages. One is the environment norm, which they get to adhere in a very, very meaningful way. I mean, lowering their emission standard as well as contributing to the environment by lowering this. Second is on the cost point of view. If I compare this with the fossil fuel likes of say furnace oil or LSD, this is 40% cheaper on an apple to apple basis. So if you're burning say 1 liter of furnace oil in an industrial boiler, the typical cost is around 60 to 70 rupees per liter. To replace that 1 liter of furnace oil to generate equivalent amount of heat, the kind of biofuel required is approximately 30 rupees. So you can imagine the saving which a corporate can get by shifting to biofuel by replacing furnace oil. And that phenomenon has happened widespread. So there are many industrial boilers companies who are switching from furnace oil to biofuel for cost as well as environment advantage. Same is with the Indonesian coal, the imported coal. Most of the industrial boilers use imported coal because Indian coal is little inferior in quality. So industrial coal, imported coal as well. Biofuels are currently cheaper because imported coal prices have been hugely volatile in last 2 years. They have gone up by 200% and now down by 50%. So on all these count, users, the corporates are benefiting from all these angles, cost as well as environment.
Okay. So take us through some numbers to get a sense of the scale at this point in time as far as the company itself is concerned, and on a larger basis, this market right now.
Okay, I'll talk about the market first. That's more exciting, I believe. Uh, when I talk about biofuels, I'm primarily referring to solid biofuel, which are like either your briquettes or pellets or loose biomass. Now, traditionally, many sugar companies have been using their in-house bagasse as a fuel in their boilers for so many years. So it's not new to them. Now, the industrial boilers, like many other corporates apart from sugar, have switched to this biofuel. So even if I take, say, the solid biofuel industry, to our estimate is that at the current juncture, it could be anywhere close to 30,000 to 50,000 crores industry in India. That I include co-firing as well, which is basically government has mandated all the power companies to replace 5% coal by biomass pellets, including that. So it's a huge industry. This is spread across, and this is purely domestic. There's no export element in it. Addressing this opportunity, Biofuel Junction in last 4 years have actually scaled 10 times. So from the time we started till the recent audited numbers, we have achieved 10 times growth in our top line, and we have been positive, PAT positive. So we don't burn cash. We are frugally managed. So you can actually imagine where we are currently.
Okay, right. What are the kind of challenges, Ashwin? Because obviously, like you've been elaborating on, there are various stages involved, various processes involved. What are the biggest challenges that you faced in this entire process?
We realized that there were three gaps. As you asked me what were the problems, first was quality. Because agriculture residue is so heterogeneous, comes from various location, there is a heterogeneity in the agriculture residue. So the quality issue, because quality has to be within the tolerance band for the user. So quality was one. Second was consistency, because it is so spread out that fulfilling requirement at one location has to be well planned, right? The manufacturing plant cannot suffer for shortage of raw material or shortage of biomass or shortage of biofuel, and hence consistency of supply was a huge problem when we realized that time. And third was compliance. When I say compliance, it's all about the GST filing and the e-way bill, all the compliance requirement which a typical industry require. So these were the three factors which a client was facing, and we saw that as an opportunity where we can do some value add.
Right. And what about in terms of funding requirements? Because you all said that you are PAC positive, but in going forward, any requirements at this point?
Yes, we recently raised funding from some of the marquee investors, and next 6 to 10 months, we envisage that the way market has grown and the opportunity has come in the form of CBG and others, we may require to go for another round of funding in next 6 to 10 months. And as I said, the scale can be significantly higher in this particular industry for everyone. So for us, and we are all set to capture that growth. So we'll definitely be hitting the market maybe 6 to 10 months down the line.
Okay. All right. And in terms of the partnerships that you have already and perhaps what's in the pipeline, can you give us an idea?
Oh yes, uh, I would rather say that you can count companies who are not using it. So the kind of companies we are working are all marquee names, like based in the industry, Hindustan Unilever, Reliance, Mondelez. All I would say that there is ample pressure from many exporters or European parent that their companies or vendors to go for net zero, and they have decided a timeline. So apart from companies who are already using it, there is a new breed of companies who are going in for this. So uh, I would say that except for the steel industry, and maybe a couple of them where the heat requirement, energy requirement is significantly different, all others are using biomass, biofuel. So, and we work with the notable among them.
All right. Ashwin, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time out to speak to us.